Have you ever seen an over-the-top, jaw-dropping, gorgeous cake and thought, I could never make that? Well, I'm here to tell you, you actually can. Seriously, I'm gonna walk you through step by step so you can make this, 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 and even this. Let's bake the holidays. I'm Starr, and I love to bake. I like to roll up my sleeves, get creative, and bake all kinds of yummy treats. Smells so good! Don't worry about making a mess. And the holidays are a perfect time to cozy up by the warmth of your oven and spread a little cheer with your bakes. It's so good! From wonderful winter cakes to festive cookies, I'll teach you techniques and show you a ton of shortcuts. Ooh, look at that drizzle! It's a snack! This is Baking the Holidays. You might be thinking, I could never learn to bake the kinds of desserts I see on the internet. But if I can do it, so can you. I taught myself. And I know I just told you we're making 4 cakes, but don't worry, the cakes I'll be showing you today are going to progress in difficulty. So we'll start with the most basic techniques and then work our way up. They all start with the same cake as a base. Combine your dry ingredients first, flours, leavening, salt, and spices. Then whisk your wet ingredients to combine. Sugars, oil, eggs, buttermilk, zest, and sour cream. Mix to combine, then pour them into your pre-greased and lined pans and throw them into the oven at 325. The first cake I'll be showing you today, I'm calling Cozy Woodland. It's going to be a naked cake with some ice cream cone trees that will dip in chocolate and also pipe. My cake layers are leveled and cooled, and it's really important that you start with a cold cake when you're frosting. So first, we're gonna put about a cup of buttercream between each layer. With my offset spatula, I'm gonna start in the center and start pushing the buttercream out towards the edges while I turn my turntable. Then we'll grab our second cake layer and place it on top and press down a little on top of the cake to make contact and make sure it's really stuck on there. And repeat the exact same step. This is my favorite part, frosting cakes. I find it so relaxing. Now we're ready to crumb coat. So it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is just to cover the cake in a very, very thin layer of buttercream. I'm using a small offset spatula to smooth the buttercream. Oh. If it falls off, it's really fine. You can just pick it up and smear it onto your cake like this. So don't worry about making a mess. So now that I have my cake covered, I'll use my bench scraper to scrape and smooth the sides, make them a little bit straighter, a little bit smoother. And see how as I scrape, the layers of the cake are peeking through, and I think it looks really cool, rustic. It's gonna fit really well with our cozy woodland theme. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge to chill, and a fridge and a freezer are a baker's best friend. Now it's time to drizzle my melting candies over my ice cream cones, using the spoon to kind of give myself the look of the snow drifting down. It doesn't have to be even, doesn't have to be precise. Wherever the candy ends up, it's gonna look really good. To take it to the next level, we'll take some crystal sugar and drizzle it over that melting candy. And I love crystal sugar because it has a little bit more of a coarse texture, so it sparkles really nicely in the light, like this. And that's it. Let's make a few more. So same thing, that's looking good. Next, I'm gonna just dye some buttercream to pipe some trees and add a pop of color to our cake. So I didn't start baking until after college and was in kind of a stressful job. So baking was something that was really a relaxing outlet for me, a stress reliever, especially with piping buttercream and smoothing out cakes. It's nice to have something that you can just turn off your brain, do something relaxing and fun that you enjoy. Now we're gonna dip our toe into piping our trees. And then the important thing to remember is you're gonna squeeze pressure before you pull up, and then you'll get a cute little dollop like that. You can wag your fingers. I'm gonna stop before I pipe my entire tree so that I can transfer it like this. We'll move it, I'll place it right about here. And then once it's on, we can pipe the rest of the tree. And now that you've done this much, you should be feeling a little more confident in your skills of piping right on top of your cake. We're gonna move on to a technique called the shell. I'm gonna start by positioning my piping bag straight over my ice cream cone, and then I'm gonna swoop it and swoosh up towards the tip of the cone. I love this technique. I think it really looks like an evergreen tree. Time to put this tree on our cake. And we'll do the same thing. Once you transfer it on, we can finish up covering up the top part of the ice cream cone. And people will be so impressed. Cool. Looking good, looking tree-y. And these we can just place in between. Kind of like to create a crescent shape to make it look like a forest. And I think for finishing touch, we need a little more texture, a little more sparkle, so I'll finish it with a little more crystal sugar. Ooh, I love how that looks. And I think we're done. That looks pretty good. Cozy Woodland is done. Next up, we're going to build on what we learned and create a modern gingerbread cake, Lambeth style. For our second cake, we're building on the skills that we learned on our first cake. This will be a Lambeth style cake with a little more extravagant piping, and it's gonna be inspired by a gingerbread house. So we'll start with our gingerbread colored buttercream, and now we're gonna do a finish coat. So this should look familiar. It looks like what we just did, a naked cake, but in this case, that's our crumb coat, and it's been chilled so our cake is set and really sturdy. I'm gonna do the same technique and smooth it in one long motion. Next, I'm going to add a door with a chocolate bar. I'm gonna break it off to be about this size. And I'll put my chocolate bar door right in the center. This way, when I'm piping all my details, I know to center it around my door. I'll grab a little bit of white buttercream and add a doorknob right here. So I like to go and give myself some guide marks. I'm gonna mark on top of the cake, kind of as if I was cutting a pie. Now I'm going to get to the fun part, which is decorating our cake. We'll start with our piped drop strings. You're gonna just let it hover and drop. Bring your piping tip back up. The thing that helps the most is to just let gravity do the work. If you let it drop and then end your drop string at the points that we marked, it makes it a lot easier to get nice even swoops. Ooh, we made it all the way around. It's looking pretty good. We're gonna do the same thing now with our pink buttercream right above each of our mint colored swags. Now I'll switch out my piping tip on this pink bag to a petal tip to make ruffles on the side of my cake. Once I do one, I kind of end up counting how many little ruffles I need to make it all the way to one swoop. I think it's 7. Let's see, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is when I really get in the zone. I really enjoy piping. I find it so relaxing. I can turn off my brain and just pipe away, counting to 7 over and over again. And we'll just pipe another little shell border like we did on those trees before. This type of piping is sometimes called over piping, which refers to you piping more frosting over your already frosted cake. Now with white buttercream and a really small star tip, I'm gonna pipe a fleur-de-lis design all the way around the sides of my cake. Just like we did on our piped trees, it's the same exact shell technique. You're gonna swoop it up and then drag it down towards the bottom. And just to finish off each of these, I'm gonna take a little round dragée and place them at the bottom of each fleur-de-lis. I'll just place it and tap it in with my finger to make sure it sticks to the buttercream. And then also to make our top edge look nice and finished, I'll do the same thing and place a gold dragée at the top of each swag. Now we'll cover up all our little guidelines by piping a border on top of the cake. This is my favorite border to pipe. I call this the swirly swirl, but the technical name is a reverse shell. It's a really common border seen on this Lambeth style cake. And this style's been around for a long time, but in the beginning, it was only really used on formal cakes, like wedding cakes. It was just white on white piping. But Martha Stewart introduced more color and sort of modernized it, and it's the cakes that you see today. All right, my cake is looking so extravagant, so extra, so why don't we add some more? The fanciest buttercream door frame you've ever seen. Cool. Down here, this will be the same technique that I did on top of the cake. Let's add peppermint candies. Who do you think lives in this gingerbread house? And then I think my final step is to add some dragées at the top of each of these swags, and then I'll be done, I promise. I think we made it. All the way around? Looks good. Done! So from cozy woodland to trendy Lambeth. But wait, there's more! Cake number 3, our winter wonderland watercolor cake. First thing I'm gonna do before I touch my cake is I'll go quickly make bark that I'll use later. Melt peppermint flavored white melting candy in the microwave. Spread it out on a baking sheet lined with parchment. Sprinkle with all the goodies you want. Let it sit for 15 minutes until dry, and then it can be broken into pieces. Starting with the same spice cakes, it's already been crumb coated, and now I'm gonna show you a new technique called the watercolor technique. So I want all my buttercream to be at the same temperature, same consistency, so that everything will blend together seamlessly like an actual watercolor painting. So basically we're painting with buttercream. Okay, now that we have our vase, we're ready to add on our watercolors. So I've mixed 2 shades of blue here. And typically I'll start with the lighter color. And I'll just take my offset spatula, get a little scoop, and just smear it on the side of the cake like this. I'll just lightly blend that into the base. And you can already see how it's kind of blending in to the white buttercream that's underneath. And this is where you just have fun and add the colors in wherever you want to. Then go in with a scraper and smooth everything out. This is already looking pretty good. Looks pretty good. All right, so now that I've got my watercolor base on, we're gonna start with our small scraper. And we're just gonna spin and spin to create this ribbony, cool texture on the side of the cake. And it's as easy as that. Kinda cool, right? For this winter wonderland cake, we're just gonna assemble it with a bunch of different toppings like peppermint candies, dragées, crystal sugar, and chocolate bark that we made. So I'll swirl on some white buttercream up on top and then a little bit on the corner just to add some balance. And then next, what I'm doing is adding colored buttercream to the walls of the piping bag, which is gonna stripe through when I add the white inside. So now we got a 2-toned buttercream swirl. And as you'll notice, these dollops are exactly the same as the technique that we did to pipe the trees on the first cake. So like a Lambeth cake, we're doing a lot of piping, but the nice thing about this style is that you don't really have to think about where you're going. You can just go with the flow and just add until I like how it looks. And you know what? I like how it looks. I've broken up my bark and I'll just start with the larger pieces and place it into my cake, pressing down a little bit so that it gets into the actual cake part, and that way it'll stay sturdy. You know, if a piece of your bark breaks, it's a snack. We can just switch it with another one. Pull that out. Oh, that's really good. The peppermint candies give it a really nice crunch. Can you tell between the gingerbread cake and this one that I really like decorating with peppermints? Yeah, that looks good. It's done! This winter wonderland cake makes me smile. Now onto our final creation. We're going to combine everything we learned and design a two-tiered modern maximalist cake. At this point of our cake journey, I've shown you how to do all kinds of different cake decorating techniques, and it's time to put everything together to create this two-tier, show-stopping, modern maximalist cake masterpiece. Just like I've done for the previous cakes, I already have my spice cake layers assembled, the crumb coat's on, the finish coat is on, and it's chilled, and now I'm ready to decorate. First, I'll take my licorice strings, and they're a little bit bent, and all I have to do is stretch them out a little bit, and that'll let it be a little more elastic so I can place them where I want to go. And this is gonna be the string of my string lights. When my licorice string ends, I'll line up my next one right next to it, and even though there's a little joint there, I'm not worrying about it because I'll just put one of my holiday string lights there to hide the theme. When I'm adding the bottom string, I'm kind of looking at where I put loops on the top string and adding my loops on the bottom string in different spots so that it adds a little variety to the cake. Let's add some lights on and see how it all comes together. For the holiday lights, I used a mold and the same melting candies that we used. Poured that in and let it set in the freezer, and they popped right out to create these little lights. If you didn't have a mold or didn't want to go through the effort of making these lights, you could always just use colored candies in place of lights and place them on the string. It will give the same effect. Maybe a jelly bean. That's looking fun. I'm gonna do the back. Okay, let's stack it, shall we? Before we add the second tier on top of our cake, we need to give the bottom tier some support in the center so the weight of the top doesn't collapse in on our bottom tier. So I have these plastic dowels that I'm going to stick in, and I always use 3 to create a triangle formation, and a triangle is our strongest shape. You definitely want to make sure that your dowels are flat on top of the cake, because even if there's just a little bit poking up, your cake will be uneven and it might topple over, and we don't want that. See? Now that our bottom cake is nice and sturdy, it's time to transfer our top tier. I always add a little bit of buttercream right over the dowels so it has something to stick to. Okay, now I'll pipe the tree on my top tier. Having some little markings to tell you where to go is always helpful when you're piping. So we use the same tip on the Winter Wonderland cake, but for this cake, we're just using the same tip in a different application. And this is like coloring. You just have to fill in the space. No real method to it. Now I'm just piping dollops, and this should look really familiar. It's just like the first tree that we did on our woodland cake. Tiny little kisses of buttercream just to fill up the rest of the space. This cake really is a representation of me right now, the things I like, the colors I like, and the piping and decorating styles that I like. So it may not be the cake that I would have made 5 years ago, and it's probably not the cake I'll make 5 years from now, but that's what's fun about cake decorating, is you get to see your own style and interests evolve as well. Now now it's time to add some ornaments to this tree. And just like we did before, I'm gonna start with the larger balls and dragées first and fill in with the little ones. Just because I can't help myself and I love piping borders, I'm gonna pipe a reverse shell border on the base of this cake. There we go. Swirly swirl. Now, maybe this piping technique looks a little confusing to your eye. Something I remember is to think about doing question mark shapes in reverse order. It's kind of like a sideways question mark, and then a question mark in the opposite direction. And to hide that little piece where you ended, you just pipe your next one right on top. Perfect. The final step wouldn't be a Mia Starr cake without putting a star on top of the tree. And that's it! This is my modern maximalist holiday cake using all of the techniques that we learned today, and you can do it too. I hope you feel inspired and empowered to try some of these designs in your own kitchen. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can start small and build up to a more challenging technique. With a little skill and a lot of buttercream, you can bring a little magic and sweetness to your holidays. See you next time for more Baking the Holidays.